Welcome to episode 3 of Newy Tech People, and today we've got Jonathan Milgate from Anditi. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming on. Jonathan and I have known each other for probably, 3 years now?
Yeah, it's a good couple of years, yeah.
Back at the Newy Tech startup events.
Yeah, that's
Both of us have an interest in and around the startup scene, so it's a good community building aspect of...
Definitely.
That's all good. Mate, Anditi's got some exciting things going on. I think you guys are probably doing more technologically advanced things than a lot of people around Newcastle. So, mate, I think it'd be really good or interesting for people to understand a little bit about yourself first,
Sure.
And then we'll go a little bit into, what you're currently doing at Anditi.
So I guess my role at Anditi, I'm the head of development there, so looking after a couple of development teams and some data scientists and GIS specialists. We're a startup in a sort of startup or scale-up phase. So my role at the moment revolves around everything from organising development sprints, looking at agile, lean design thinking, trying to get those processes in place, even to QA. And yesterday I was setting up some Active Directory domains. So the role is really varied because we're a startup and we're a scale-up. So it's pretty exciting from there. Anditi, we're a large spatial analytics company. We specialise in spatial information and 3D rendering and 3D finding yourself in the 3D space and figuring out how things work and where things are in space, and then allowing anybody to get that information out. So rather than having to need a GIS specialist in your organisation, we can provide you the information out of your data.
Nice, mate. In and around data, I think, is that one of the things that obviously attracted you to Anditi? I think you've mentioned before machine learning.
Yep.
A lot of companies talk about AI and talk about machine learning and talk about sort of newer technologies and things going forward, but I think very few people are actually executing in that space. Anditi's obviously one of those few. Is that what attracted you to the role?
Not initially, no. So my role before that was with homesales.com.au, a real estate classified site, looking after a large software team there. The role initially interested me because Anditi has a purpose. They want to make the world a better place. And that sort of was really interesting to me rather than just the tech in general. And then when I met with Peter and Stephen, the head of the head of strategy and the general manager, you could see when you talked to them that they had a real passion for what they were doing, and they wanted to make a change in the world, and they knew how to go about doing that. That's what really interested me in the role in the first place. But on getting there, as you said, we're really doing next level stuff. We're looking at machine learning. We're building algorithms that are automatically detecting roof planes and building outlines from LiDAR and aerial imagery, and feeding information back into those loops and improving the machine learning algorithms by doing that.
Nice, mate. Mate, sounds quite exciting.
It's pretty cool.
When you made mention of actually making the world a better place, mate, go a little bit into detail on that and what Anditi's doing and where they hope to go longer term.
So at a basic level, it's providing information out of that data to anybody, to solar installers, to building surveyors, concreters, chippies, builders, anybody who wants to know anything about a property that they want to get to before they need to go there. So you can see in the app, you can see the house outline, you can see the height, the roofs, the pitch, the eaves, any vegetation, and you can get all of that information before you have to leave your desk, and you can see if really what I need to do when I get there. So it's some things you don't even think about, like if you're a concreter and you need to put a driveway in, if you need to dig out, we can tell you the ground contours on the ground from our LiDAR and imagery, how much do you need to cut in or build up for concrete, so you can predict how much concrete you'll need to use. If you're a solar installer, we can tell you the pitch of the roof, and from the azimuth of the sun, we can tell you how much potential energy that roof can generate.
Yeah.
Yes, it's really exciting, and it is, as you said, it's next level stuff. It's we just need to get the product out there and get more people using it. We've got a couple of customers at the moment, but yeah, we really need to scale it out.
That's nice, mate. So you've been there for just under a year now?
6 months, just over 6 months.
6 months,
Yeah,
mate.
not long.
That would have been an aggressive 6 months. Probably feels
It's been,
like 10 years.
Definitely. We have a bit of a saying there that when you start drinking from the fire hose because there's just so much information, so much coming in and out of your ears. I'd never touched anything with machine learning before. And it's, the guys that we've got there, it's 4 or 5 different PhDs. I think I'm the least educated person at the moment. Formally educated, I should say that. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that really is. That's interesting, mate. That whole space. Do you think, obviously, Anditi's quite forward-thinking in and around that area? Are there other companies, in your space doing similar things? Is it a new technology or a new sort of, I guess, area or industry that you think will continue to grow? It's
definitely going to grow.
Yeah.
There's other companies around who are doing interesting things in that space. So there's a lot of LiDAR and imagery, and you'll see all the time people flying drones over coal loaders and pits and things to try and get cuts and drainage and things like that. So that's growing, but the accuracy is not there. Photogrammetry, as anyone's would have seen, the 3D space that Google will give you in 3D in Google Maps. It's not as accurate. You'll get a bit of skirting, we call it, at the bottom of buildings, so it curls out rather than gives you this nice edges.
Nice.
So what we're using is LiDAR, which is like radar with lasers, and it gives you much more accuracy. We're also talking to different companies about mobile LiDAR, so LiDAR off the top of a car as it's driving around, like your Teslas and your newer cars have LiDAR collecting information all the time. How do we use that information to figure out where things are and the rate of change of those things as well?
That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Mate, as I mentioned before, you and I have probably got to know each other through, in and around the startup scene.
Yep.
And he's probably past that startup stage into sort of scale up. Mate, what's the experience been? You've obviously come from, I guess, big corporates in the past to big corporate and then to sort of medium-sized business, now into, let's call it a scale up. And what's your experience been and the differences there?
I can probably even go a step back. My first role was with New South Wales Department of Health. So
yeah, right.
I've gone from government to big business to smaller business and now to startup. I've gone backwards almost. It's really interesting. As I mentioned earlier, the breadth of what I need to do in my role, it can be anything. It was really stressed to me when I first started that we need someone who's hands-on. And that's great. I can get in there and make some changes, or I can next be coming out and doing a strategy session. But we're definitely feeling some growing pains. Newcastle's a great place, but the talent is not always bubbling to the surface. It's sometimes hard to find. So when we need to expand, it's really hard for us to find the right person. And now we're not just about finding more people, we're finding the right people. So it's difficult. And again, we're trying to disrupt some of the traditional players, especially in the geospatial space. So bigger businesses, we need to target governments and large organisations, and their procurement procedures make it really hard for someone to come in and do a SaaS off-the-shelf sort of monthly subscription fee rather than here's a nice big contract with a 12-month lead period and here's a deliverable.
Yeah, it's not easy to get one of those over the line real quick.
No, it's not. I think once we do get one of those, they'll see and they'll go, wow, this is different and this is amazing, and it'll snowball from there.
Yeah, like getting a proof of concept over the line and getting that first signature on the line, right?
Yep.
Not easy.
No, it's not easy. We've got a couple of pans in the fire. What do you say? In the fire.
Yeah.
It should come pretty soon, and Anditi will be on everybody's lips.
Mate, that'd be really exciting. It's that's the challenges of a startup, right, or a scale up, right? Is to try and get that, and I think we're discussing off air where you guys could be in 12 months' time. It could be any number of spaces. Some
of the big contracts come off. We could be international in the next few years. It's really an amazing sort of place to be. The potential is there to do anything. That the analytics engine we've built the capabilities are so broad. It's been hard for us to find this niche to say, like I've said, we looked at property and solar initially with some contracts for government and for other places. And then from there, once those come off, where do we focus next? We've got so many options.
Yeah, nice. It definitely looks like it's got more capability than where you're currently going after. But
yeah, huge amount. It's come from environmental sciences in the background, so floodplain modelling and vegetation encroachment and malleefowl detection. But yeah, it's already moved into other things, and like I said, the capabilities of it are there.
Yeah, cool. Mate, from a technology perspective, just for the people that might be listening, maybe don't know a little bit or a lot about Anditi.
Sure.
Mate, obviously, we've touched on machine learning. Is there anything that sets you guys apart or that you think are quite interesting? You obviously worked in a couple of different dev environments
Sure.
now, and new environment, a little bit sort of forward-thinking company. Mate, is there anything that sort of sets you apart that you think other people not being in that similar environment find interesting?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that sets us apart is our culture. It's
Yeah.
not technology. It's not a specific piece of tech. It's not a particular language that we use. It's an attitude and it's a belief in what we do and why we're doing it. So we don't agree with doing the same thing twice. If this is the way we've always done it, that's not the way we're going to keep doing it. It's really that culture and that attitude that we want to try and break boundaries and figure out how to do different things and do them smarter and do them better.
Mate, music's to my ears. Obviously, been a tech recruiter, mate. My job is to know the people behind the tech,
Sure.
and I think the technology's there, right? And
Yeah, it comes and goes, right? Technology's transient.
Yeah, and you've got to, and it doesn't matter who you are, you're going to have to learn new technologies, right?
That's
So
it.
trying to look for somebody that's got the exact technology experience that you're after might not always be the best way. So trying to find those people that have the right attitude to say, hey, this is what we're going to do, and having that right mindset to say, we don't fail twice, we're going to try new things.
That's right. Well, and it's okay to fail. You can fail. We need to try some things. We often will come along and say, can we actually do this? I don't know. Let's figure it out. Sometimes it takes longer than we'd like, but we get there in the end.
Mate, nice. All right, let's wind it way back. Mate, technology for you. How did you find yourself in technology?
I've always been there. So I've been thinking about this since you asked me the other day. Since I can remember, my dad has been in technology. He was a systems analyst for forever. And I remember him telling me stories that when he was younger and he and my mother were dating, he'd tell people that he was an accountant because it was easier. People didn't know what a systems analyst or a programmer was.
Yeah. Right.
And from there, when I was around younger, he worked at the Newcastle University doing systems development and big system design for them. So he's always bringing home weird and wacky tech things. So I've actually got an Apple Newton at home that we used to use back in the 80s. It's a great little piece of tech, but it's dated. So I've always been around that stuff, and I think I've always been drawn to it. I like the idea that if something's not working, you can kind of figure out why it's not working, or it's almost binary, like it works or it doesn't. There might be bugs, but it either works or it doesn't. There's no grey areas.
yeah, mate, that's for sure.
I think that's what drew it to me in the first place. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And then, mate, university.
Yep.
Mate, not everyone. There are differing opinions out there on
Sure.
university and the value of university for technology professionals in particular. I think there's, things have changed over time.
Yeah.
What remains the same is there are a lot of either hiring managers or HR managers looking out there, and the first thing they have got in their requirements is degree in computer science or something of the equivalent. Now, you've obviously done your degree.
Mm-hmm.
Probably two questions. A, how did you find that valuable or not? And two, what's your opinion on, is it a necessity?
That's a really tough question, actually. I don't think it's a cut and dry. I just mentioned being binary ones and zeros, but it's not anymore. Back when I did my degree, which is so many years ago, it was. If you didn't have that piece of paper, then you couldn't get the job. And that's essentially why I did it in the first place. But I've since gone back and done a master's degree, and that was more personal for me because I needed that as the goal-setting technique, that if I have this subject, it needs to be done by now, and I need to study and make sure I get it done by then. So for me, the university degree was more about getting something done. Like, I know I wanted to achieve this goal, and that's how I got to it. In terms of what you learn at university, I think it's much better to learn about how to do things and the history of things and the theory behind it, whereas the actual hands-on technical things, as we said, technology is transient. It will change. I learned Java when I was at uni. No one uses Java. Well, that's not true. People use Java, but I've never written a line of code in Java in the real world in my life. But I did 4 years of it at university.
Yeah.
But what I learned was how to write code and how to build systems. And that's what's really driven me to where I am today. I don't think it's a necessity. If you've got the knack for it, if you want to do it, if you've got passion for it and you can teach yourself how to do it, then go for it. You don't need university for that sort of thing. To an extent, but I think For us, as I mentioned, Anditi's got quite a few PhD students, and that's about research. So we do a lot of research. A lot of our time and our budget goes towards research and development. How do we do new things and try out new things? And I think you've got to have a good background in physics and maths to be able to do that. I can't imagine anyone not going to university figuring out how to learn about physics and maths another way.
Completely agree.
Yeah, so I think it's a two-way street now. A lot of people are not as a lot of people don't need to go to university anymore to get where they need to be, especially in software development. There's a lot of good resources out there: Code Academy, Khan Academy, Udemy. There's heaps of different resources out online to learn software development and design and interaction design and things like that you won't get at university anyway. And if you want to learn how to write particular language, you don't go to university. You do that online, or you find a specific course about it.
Yeah, mate, there's a good chance whatever you're writing at university probably will not be the language of choice.
As I said, yeah, right. So I did 4 years of Java.
Yeah.
I've never written a line of Java in my life.
Agreed.
Outside of uni. Yeah.
Mate, you made mention of a couple of other resources. Mate, if you had to recommend a couple of different resources to other people, once again, either your younger self, or let's say somebody that's deciding whether to go university or not, they want to become a really quality dev. Mate, where would you point people?
I guess it depends on their personality as well. Like if you want to become a really good quality dev, if you want to have a long career and think about how things work rather than just a particular language, then I would probably recommend you go to uni and do computer science and figure out, it'll tell you how database design, it'll tell you about theory, it'll tell you about design patterns, things that you won't learn from those online resources. If you want to be great at a particular language, then check out those online resources, Udemy, Khan Academy, Code Academy. I've had a few people ask me about my nephew or my son is really interested in starting in development. Where do they start? I said, if you're really not sure if that's something you want to do, those online resources are the best. They're really easy to get kicked off in. They're really easy to get started. Yep. Just try them. You'll soon find out if it's something you're good at and you want to do, rather than spending 4 years learning something that you maybe don't want to use.
Yeah, mate, I completely agree. I think those resources are becoming more and more
prevalent. Yep.
Yeah, and available, right? And cheaper.
Actually, a lot of the US universities are putting their courses online as well and making those available. But it comes down to what you want to get out of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's different ways you can go about it. I don't think there's one right way.
No, I think that used to be the case.
Yep.
Like it used to be, you go to school, you go to uni, you get your job, and you progress through the same company forever.
Yep.
And that's not the case anymore. There's many ways to get in and skin the cat, so to speak.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you told your parents about you'd be in your fourth, fifth company by your age.
Yeah, right.
A heart attack, right?
Yep. Probably. Yeah, they wouldn't believe me at all. No,
my parents would. Yeah, mate, it's interesting how times change, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Mate, continuing down this education route, right? Obviously, there's formal education. You've done your degree and you've done your masters. There's definite value in that. There's definite value in some of the other resources, mate. When you go to non-traditional, not non-traditional. If you go to other resources, let's call it books, podcasts, people you might follow. Now let's start on books, mate. Any really good quality books you've read lately that you'd recommend to other people?
Unfortunately, most of my reading at the moment is textbooks from my masters that I'm almost finished. But outside of that, it's guys like Simon Sinek, Start With Why, and then other books I've read recently is The Lean Enterprise. So those sorts of, it's really tech stuff for me. I don't really read non-fiction, so it's fiction. It's really more about that sort of stuff. Yeah. Something that I'm particularly interested in. Podcasts as around those as well. So Simon Sinek's got a great YouTube channel and great podcast that goes along with it. Yeah. For fun podcasts, I love There's No Such Thing as a Fish. Yeah. The guys from QI, they talk about just random things every week, and they bring up some really interesting topics and then give you resources to go and find out more about them.
Yeah, nice.
So unfortunately for me, it's been mostly textbooks and uni. Yeah. And learning from that.
But I think what you did mention there, right, Simon Sinek, right, for example, you obviously Start With Why and Leaders Eat Last, right? You're starting to look about not only technology itself, but, how technology teams, you made it, mention of it before with Anditi, with culture being really important, right? Yeah. When you're starting to look at guys like yourself who are in those more senior roles, not only looking at the actual technology using, because as you said, it's transient and it will change, but having a look at how do you build those teams, how do you get the most out of those teams, why are you doing certain things? Because I think, especially you talking to devs, probably some of the more technical people there are out there, there's got to be a reasoning behind what they're doing for them to produce good quality code.
Yeah, right. There's lots of great resources online, and ebooks and short podcasts here and there about high performance teams and how to build high performance teams. Some of them are conflicting, some of them are really good, but I think it's about learning about those things, and the more traditional things like, the 5 stages of team development, forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. Those basic tenets have been around forever. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, all those things have been around for a really long time, but they're still relevant. So finding out those things, I don't know how you'd get around that without. So for me, it was really easy. I did organisational psychology at uni, and that pointed me in those directions. And I attended some DevOps days in Brisbane. Met guy Sydney Decker, who's written some really interesting books about blame culture, and that sort of stuff started the synapses flowing and really pointed me towards some more interesting, higher level sort of things.
That's very interesting. Now let's stay on that. I obviously have a massive interest in and around building teams and strongly performing teams. Mate, you've been in a number of teams, number of companies now. You would have obviously changed your thoughts and learned different things, different places along the way. Mate, if you had to say like 2 core things that you think have worked well in building strong software development teams, let's stay in that because that has been your niche.
Sure.
I know it's a bit wider now, but
no, that's all right. No.
Mate, let's a couple of core things that you would give advice to other people in building a strong team.
Well, I can say one for sure. It's 100% culture.
Yeah.
And the culture encompasses a lot of things, though. So I'm going to be a bit vague here.
Yeah.
So
dig
right. So culture is really what will drive it. It will decide whether you want to come to work or not, and that's what's really important. To get that right, you need things like trust, and you need goals. You need a long-term nirvana that everybody believes in and wants to go to. So let's start with why, right? Simon Sinek says perfectly. Start with why. Where are we going, and why are we trying to get there? And then around that, it's the trust and autonomy. So if I want to get there, I know I can trust that you're going to do your part, I'm going to do my part, and we're all going to get there at the same time, and it's going to be an awesome party. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. It's really culture. Like, tech will come. You can teach people tech. It's harder to teach people culture.
Yeah, mate, I completely agree. You can hire for tech, and you can you can learn. You can learn new skills. But I think if you get those right people, getting the right people in place it's the key, right?
So I read something not long ago that was there's only 2 reasons you should hire someone: is do they fit in or improve your culture, and how quickly they can learn.
Yeah. And
those are the only 2 things you need to worry about.
Mate, you just touch on learning. Let's continue down that route, mate. I'm a massive fan of that. I my podcast list, my Audible list, and my iBooks.
Yeah, mine's just a bit longer than it should be. Yeah,
agreed, mate. I'm a big fan of that. Obviously, you've talked about it today. We've talked about it previously about continual learning, mate. If you had to, once again, let's go back to the advice piece. If you had to continue to sort of provide advice to younger people or a younger version of yourself, where would you start? Where would you point people?
I think something that I would point to myself when I was younger is that figure out what you want to do. Like, think about what you want to do. Even if it's not right, like, make a choice and do something. Don't just sit back and do nothing. A lot of people can, and even myself, I did this for a long time, just think, I don't really know what I want to do, so I'm just going to just coast through and see what happens. And then when stuff didn't go the way I wanted it to, I kind of blamed everybody else. But it's really more about, take some responsibility, define where you want to go, and really drive for it. I think that's a learning it's not just about learning, it's about every thing in life. It's not, people aren't out to get you. The world maybe doesn't care, but it's not out to get you. Go for it, drive and pick something and go for it.
Yeah, and even if you fail, right, you learn from your mistakes.
That's exactly right. So that's a huge part of it. And I think there's a fear, there was definitely a fear for me, like, I don't know if I can do this. So what? Try it and figure it out. If you fail, you've learned something. We'll move on.
Agreed. Mate, you're obviously a guy I know that attends a lot of meetups. You're involved in organising the upcoming DevOps Day. Mate, there's another learning around other people. Mate, can you speak to in a little bit of detail about value of meetups, value of a strong community Well,
Yeah,
I think
it's-
we're building that here in Newcastle. I mean, what's your thoughts in and around that area?
Definitely, Newcastle's an interesting place, right? So it's big, but it's not that big. I don't think I could go anywhere within talk to a tech person and not know someone that they know, but that's important too. I mean, especially in my position, as we mentioned before, the talent pool is not that broad. It's depth. You know, there's a lot of great people here, there's a lot of people with great talent, but there's not a lot of them. So if I need someone specific, odds on I already know who they are, and I'll try and find them out. So networking in Newcastle is a major thing. You've got to know the people, know the right people, and get in the right areas, because it's not big enough to kind of just go out on your own.
Mate, I agree. And there's a lot to be learned, I think, from other people, and that's what we're trying to do with this podcast, right? I think you guys and what you're doing at Anditi is new. It's something different than what, I guess, traditional Newcastle has done. And there's probably a lot of learnings even more traditional companies could take from the way that you're building your team, the way that you're structuring your team. Not only the new technologies you're learning, but you're doing things slightly differently to traditional companies.
Yeah, I think so. And we've got the flexibility to do it because we're a bit smaller. So maybe they could view what we've done and what we've failed and learnt from, and use that as the starting point. I think the biggest, something we didn't touch on before talking about learning, one of the best ways to learn is those communities of practice. So meetups are a really good place to meet people who are doing similar things, have similar issues, and maybe have solved them, or can help you work through your version of that problem. And they're really strong in Newcastle. There's JavaScript coders group, Newcastle coders group, infrastructure coders group. There's the Agile meetup. There's the Newy startups. There's the Innovators Lunch at 1804, and there's all of the Inex days at 376. There's so much going on in Newcastle that it would be hard pressed to find, if you have a problem, it would be hard pressed for you to find someone to talk to about it.
Yeah, to not find someone to
Yeah,
talk
sorry,
to, right?
to not find someone. No, yeah, you're definitely going to find someone to talk about it.
Oh, mate, I completely agree. I think there's a lot of value in that, right? And I think there is value in, as you mentioned, there's a lot of different siloed groups in bringing that together, right?
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest problems we have right now, is that there is so many siloed groups. So there's a JavaScript coders group and there's a Newcastle coders group. Quite often they'll have a similar talk on in the same month, but it's different people that go. And with DevOps Days coming up, it's a cheap plug for DevOps Days 2018, Newcastle. When that's coming up, and so I've spoken to a few people about other tech conferences, like Steph Hines from GrowthWise. She does Dig every year. She's got a close community there, and that's all well and done. And I talked to Newcastle Council about it. Oh, we're putting on another conference towards the end of the year, and there's no sort of aggregator or common goal over the top of these things. That I think that's what Newcastle's missing. We act like a small town most of the time, but sometimes we do big city things. I think acting like a small town, coming together for this stuff would make us more powerful.
I completely agree. It's hard. I think a few people have tried in the past, and I think a few people are continuing to try, and I think we will.
I hope we will.
We may get there at some point, but as long as they're moving toward that and trying to provide more of a community type feel.
It's a journey, isn't it?
It really is.
We won't get there tomorrow, but we will get there. I think the current iteration of the council are trying to do those things as well, which is good. And it just takes people like us to break those walls down and be more communicative and more collaborative.
Yeah, I agree, and we've got the right foundations, right? We've got a really strong council. We've got the university behind us.
Yeah.
So, and then you've got some bigger businesses around the city as well to provide that sort of that big support.
Yeah, there's some great businesses around doing some interesting stuff. Mine, NIB, Greater Bank, Newcastle Permanent. They're always looking to better themselves and how can they be better. Yep. And that's only good for Newcastle.
I completely agree. And then you've got that sort of upswell of the smaller companies as well, trying to, if you put all that together, it's a definite strong community, opportunity there.
I think so. There's quite a few startups coming. Camplify's done amazing things. They came from here.
Yeah.
Crave Media, they've just signed some massive deal in the US, so good on them. There's some really big things happening in Newcastle, some great tech and some great ideas coming out. We just need to kind of really celebrate that we're from Newcastle. I think that's a problem that a lot of people have and a lot of companies have, to say we are from Newcastle, and yeah, we're great.
Yeah, and I think that's, once again, it's a journey thing, because there can be negative connotations with being a small, Newcastle is small in comparison to, the
Yeah.
major cities. So, and people may look negatively upon it because, hey, it's from a small city or a small town.
Well, we've got the history of steelworks and BHP, and it's a very blue collar town. And not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just we will be pivoting very soon, and this is where it's coming. And get on board and let's shout it from the rooftops. Newcastle is a tech hub now.
Nice, mate. You've obviously stayed around here from a career perspective.
Yep.
Family around Newcastle. Mate, what's your advantages or your thought process behind staying in Newcastle?
I think my thought process of staying behind Newcastle is that I can afford a house here. I can live here. I don't have to live in a small box in a tall tower. I can put my dog in the back of the car and go to the beach and go for a walk, or and not be not be surrounded and harassed, and not have 100 people around me. Sometimes I like to be just a big open space and just me and the dog. But at the same time, it's not so small that I can't go to 100 different cafes if I want to try something different, or if I need to hire someone with a specific skill set, I can probably find them. Yeah. It's that really good balance between being a small town and a big city.
Yeah, I agree, mate. And then from a career perspective, right?
Yep.
There's obviously been enough opportunity for you to stay around.
There has. It's every time it's been one of those, I think my next job is going to be in Sydney. I think my next job is going to be in Sydney. But luckily, I've been really fortunate in that I've been able to find roles that are interesting, but have driven me and made me who I am. Like a couple of roles at NIB changed my career entirely. I went from being a very technical person to down the more management head of path because of some of the people I met there and some of the work we did there, and have been able to take that further with some of the roles that have come up in Newcastle.
Yeah.
So they exist, but they're few and far between at the moment.
I agree. And mate, on NIB, I think NIB's been a good stepping stone, or a great stepping stone for a lot of people, either to continue their career within NIB, or to learn some really strong foundations and then move on.
They're probably the biggest player that's doing the most innovative and most exciting things. And they have those cultural values about, it's okay to fail and we need to keep changing and driving. And if you get in there, you'll learn from some great people. I had an opportunity to leave and do something different that I wanted to do, so there I am. But I've still got quite a few friends there and still keep in contact with the guys there. But as I said, it really was a turning point for me working at NIB. I can't stress that enough.
Yeah, nice. Mate, we spoke about the positives of Newcastle.
Yep.
What are the challenges? What are the biggest challenge for you? I think you've made mention of the talent pool.
Yeah,
obviously I'm a recruiter. I'm in mate,
yeah.
That's the pool I'm playing in, and the challenges are to try to drag people to Newcastle. And I think it's becoming easier conversation. We've obviously got a lifestyle pitch that we can make, but I think the conversation around technology we're using and opportunity down the track is an easier conversation. But what's mate, outside of just pure talent? Or is that the challenge?
I think you've touched on it. All those things that you mentioned is exactly what the problem is. So there's things going on in Newcastle, but the talent is maybe not aware of it. So we've got a great number of people coming out of university going straight to Sydney or going straight overseas because they don't think there is anything in Newcastle. And then there's that level of talent or a level of engineers that's saying, I'm here now, the only thing else I can do is go to Sydney, because then they're not aware of what else is available, or a different way to get to what they want to do that is available in Newcastle. The lifestyle's here, and it's livable. It's not $1 million for a small box, but I think, as you said, a lot of those things are they're a curse, but they're also a pleasure. You're getting great things out of Newcastle, but you're getting some bad things out of it too.
Yeah, mate. As I said, I think the conversation is becoming easier. I think the key part is, as you said, a lot of people do finish university and then go away for opportunity. A lot of people have done that, but when you get people that are looking to buy a house or grow their family, or they've had their first child and they're looking for a backyard or a place for their dog to run around, that's when we can really bring people back and provide opportunity. Yeah,
I think that's a good point too. We often talk about how do we poach someone from Sydney? How do we attract someone who's in Sydney and would possibly want to come back and have this lifestyle? It's quite often we'll get someone, like a sales will be down there saying, hey, check out Anditi, come and see us. And they come and see us in the office, and we take them around Newcastle a bit, go out to Foghorn, you know, great restaurant, have a couple of beers, and they go, you know, the lifestyle's really good here. It's not busy. Like, this is busy for Friday, you know, there's not that many people here. It's much more relaxed atmosphere, and you can see them considering it. You know, oh, it's actually not so bad. Maybe we could do something here. Yeah. I think there's not enough bigger business to keep that next level. If we had a large international, like an Atlassian or a Google or something in Newcastle, that would be a game changer.
Yeah. Hey, you're not the first person that said that. I think that is the challenge. That would be the game changer. Yeah. Is one large international organisation with a tech team of, let's say, minimum 100, that would change the game for Newcastle.
So we've got some big tech teams, Greater, Newcastle Perm, NIB, we've mentioned before. They've got big tech teams. And university's got a huge tech team. And they're doing great things and really interesting, but people maybe don't consider them at that level like they would Atlassian or Google or, you know, the guys. And Sydney, you know, it's just down the road. It's not that far away.
I completely agree. But I think the other thing that's making conversation a little bit easier these days is that salary. And we, you know, I think you and I have had this conversation in the past as well. The salary is becoming more and more comparable, especially not even taking into account the costs of Sydney, but the dollar figure being put on that contract is becoming more and more comparable.
Yeah, outside there's crazy players like Atlassian and Google who are offering, you know, a farm. I think you're right. The dollars are here. There's no reason to consider moving to Sydney for money. Yeah. I think it's a fool's errand because of price of living. Yeah. And potentially there's a larger pool to play and a larger role you can go to, but there's stuff here in Newcastle you should check out.
Hey, on that note, then if you are looking for sponsors at the moment?
We are, yes. I don't have a sponsorship package. You've caught me off guard here. It's really early days. We've booked the conference venue. We're doing a save the date this week. It'll come out. Some people will see it this week, which will be weeks before this podcast airs. But hopefully before then, check out DevOps Days Newcastle 2018. Just Google it and you'll find some information about it.
Cool. And if they are looking to sponsor or want some more information, they reach out on you.
Yeah, contact us on LinkedIn. So myself, Matthew Finch, Kurt Gardner, the three of us are probably the key people to talk to in Newcastle. Sorry, and Wayne Ingram. From mine, we're the key people to talk to. I'm always happy to have a chat with anybody about whatever tech in Newcastle. So yeah, contact me on LinkedIn. I'm open.
Nice, mate. So if somebody after this wants to get in contact with you, wants to talk about Anditi, some of the machine learning or anything else from a cultural perspective,
for sure.
LinkedIn's a way to...
LinkedIn's probably the best way to get in contact with me for that sort of stuff. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, or you can check out Anditi Spatial on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Nice. Follow us, get all the likes.
Yeah, cool. Mate, thanks again for coming on the podcast.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Cheers.